Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining back after lunch. I get the pleasure of making sure that you don't fall asleep after you have a full belly. So, to help with that process, we're going to do a very, very quick energizer. Can I get you just to stand up really quickly and introduce yourself to the person next to you and tell them one thing that you do really well that your company doesn't know you do? Really quickly. Okay, just about another 30 seconds. All right. So this was not only just an energizer, now that I've got everybody talking, this was not just only an energizer, but it really is meant to highlight what I'm going to talk about today, which is how do we use knowledge in the organization? How can companies make sense and take benefit of the things that their employees know that they don't know that they know? And how can they use that to help employees feel more empowered with their job, have a better career, and at the same time also be more agile as organizations? So let's start with a little bit of a construct, which if you think about it, the 20th century organization was very much like a castle, monolithic. All the work was done inside the castle. You had one way in and you had one way out. It was guarded, it was secure. People had very specific jobs. Those job descriptions were unique to what they were doing. The guy that was guarding the door had a very specific job versus the guy that was the archer on top of the roof. The archer on top of the roof was not doing dual duty as the cook, most likely. He had a specific job to keep the castle safe. Those job descriptions were formal. In today's enterprise, everything is very fluid. Work is being done across organizational boundaries. It's more like a train station. People are coming together, getting work done, having ideas that are generated. Work is done, captured, and then people disperse and go back to their lives, and then they repeat the cycle over and over again. Organizations have had to change the very nature of how they think about work. From the static job descriptions that we all have had for the last, ever parts of our career, to a new model where we're taking advantage of the skills that we have and applying them to tasks at a point of need. And organizations have to have the ability to benefit from that. Today, work is more networked. It is remote, it's team, and it's project-based. It's collaborative, and it's delegated, and it's more real-time. And that has required us to really change the way we think about how we manage work, how we leverage the knowledge in the organization, where that work is happening, the products that we use, the way we communicate with each other. And this new normal really requires us to think more like architects. How are we going to leverage those skills for the benefit of the organization and for the benefit of our employees? I love this concept from Steve Jobs. He says, design is not just about how something looks and feels. Design is about how something works. And as we think about architecting these experiences where we're curating the knowledge of the organization, we need to think about a couple of things like an architect. Who knows what? And who needs to know what in order to do their jobs? What level of proficiency do they have in that skill? Are they experts or are they not experts? Where does that knowledge reside in the organization? Is it prolific? Is it something that is isolated? Is it a new thing that's emerging that we need to have benefit into? So we want to think about that construct and turn that into this concept of a skills-based organization and how knowledge and knowledge management tools help enable the fabric of that skills-based organization to exist. So let's start with who needs to know what and who knows what. So we've done some research in a recent report that we just put out. In fact, there's a QR code at the back of this. It'll take you to the research report if you're interested in reading the whole thing. I think it's really interesting. And what we found was that organizations that operate as this skills-based construct, they're seeing results. They're more likely to be able to anticipate and effectively respond to changes in the market. So that gives them agility. They're more likely to be innovative. Why? Because people are able to bring their best ideas to the table and have those ideas developed and nurtured in the organization. They're more likely to retain high performers, 98% more likely to retain high performers. Why? Because people feel like they can contribute in a way that's not just being stuck in a dead-end job. And those concept of a job, that concept of this monolithic job description is becoming less relevant. HR executives, 8 out of 10, say that their ability to move people around and take advantage of these skills is really critical to help them navigate future disruptions in the organization. Executives are saying, 8 and 10, that work is being increasingly performed across organizational boundaries. So this is already happening today, right? But if you think about it from the lens of the employee, it's not necessarily being promoted. Only 12% of workers say that they're able to customize their work based upon the things that they know or do really well. And only 14% of executives strongly agree that their employees are using the skills, the things that they know, to the best of their ability. So how much value is being left on the table from an organization's perspective, right? And what role does knowledge management tools have to play in this construct? So the first thing is that when you think about skills, we put skills at the center of the organization. We're no longer putting the job description at the center. And what does that require us to do? We have to rethink our talent philosophy. We have to rethink the skills framework that we use. That taxonomy of skills becomes very, very important. We have to have data and technology enablers to make sense of what we have, to curate what we know, to share it with the organization, to be able to put organizational network analysis on top of our tools and really identify who are the true experts in the organization. Use social listening tools to identify emerging skills. Create this curation where my knowledge can be provided at a point of need and be valuable to some other user. And then we have to govern all this so that it doesn't become the wild, wild west, that just because we've curated something doesn't mean that it's going to be the most valuable thing in the organization. We want to make sure that that's being controlled and promoted in an appropriate way. Who has decision rights to do that? Who are the real experts? Who are the authors? That type of thing. So once you put those skills at the center, then the next thing is it starts to change everything else on the outer side. It looks at your workforce planning and talent strategies. It addresses how you're going to go out and acquire talent. Are we going to buy that talent? Are we going to rent that talent from the market? Is it something that needs to be a core skill of ours? It really enables diversity and inclusion across the organization. Why? Because opportunities are now based upon what I know and what I can do well, and it reduces those barriers to have jobs that help me grow and develop in my professional career. It enables learning and development opportunities. I can actually learn on the job in an apprenticeship model and not have to actually go out and sit in classrooms to learn something. I'm actually learning and doing at the same time and creating those connections, those neural connections to make that learning more valuable and stick. It impacts my leadership and succession, it changes my performance management systems, and it ultimately will impact the way that we're rewarding employees for what they know. Hot skills become more valuable, and cold skills become less valuable. And so we're able to start to reward employees in that way. And if you think about it, between the center where skills exist and all these other things are these spokes that reach out into those processes, and that's where knowledge management sits. This is where knowledge becomes the fabric and the framework and the interstitial connections that enable this all to hang together and to work together. And so the first construct that we have is, what do people know and who needs to know what? Well, it's all based around the skills that they have and what they can share with the organization and how the organization can benefit from it. The second piece is really around this concept of, where does knowledge reside? And the challenge that we see is that Our organizations are really complex. We have built multiple systems from content repositories to ERP systems, HRIS systems, CRMs, SharePoint sites, team sites, synchronous and asynchronous communication tools, and all this content is flowing around, all this knowledge is flowing around, and as an employee, it's really challenging. I don't know where to look. I've got 7 different tools on average that I have to go use to do my job. I toggle between 10 apps every hour, and that's about 32 hours of productivity a year that we're losing as organizations. 40% of knowledge workers' time is spent on work about work, and that's about 1 trillion hours a year. That's a lot of wasted time and effort. So when we start to think about how we're going to architect this this last component of where this knowledge resides, we have to really think about this concept of content. And if content is king, then context is God. I love this quote, and I love the analogy that one of my clients from Dell uses. He says, that YouTube video around how to fix my sink really may be super well done, but it's not beneficial to me. I don't really care about it until I'm standing with water around my ankles, right? We need to be able to understand not only what we have, but can we present it at a point of need to make it be valuable? And that requires us to know our users. We have to put those users at the center. We have to create an experience that, as Ashi was talking about earlier, is user-centered. It's really this customer-enabled, this customer-passionate view of the world. And sometimes the customer is the end user internally, and sometimes the customer is the end user externally. But it needs to be personalized. It needs to be intuitive. It needs to be easy to use. Focused on the outcome for the end user, the people focus. It allows us to connect concepts across the organization using tools like graph technologies and other cognitive tools. We need to have recommendation engines that allow us to proactively and intuitively present content at that point of need. And it needs to be enabling continuous innovation and workforce-centric capabilities. So we start asking ourselves questions like, who are the people that I work with? What is the work that I do? Where do I work? How does this impact my sense of belonging to the organization? How does it enable me to be more productive? And from the company side, how does it help them enable and perform their mission? How does it help my employees grow so that I can retain them long term? And that organizational knowledge isn't something that's created and lost. It's something that we're able to curate and nurture and use over and over and over again. So the balance between the human need and the technical need then is at the center where the architect sits. We figure out not only how somebody's going to, or what they want in their house in terms of features and functions, but how they're going to live there, how they're going to live in that job, how we're going to help them be more productive and satisfied and purposeful in their work. And this is where we start to really think about driving that workforce experience and that customer experience and help use knowledge for the benefit of the organization. So again, I had 30 minutes. I talk really, really fast. I apologize for that. But hopefully this ties together some of the things that we've talked about today. Ashu talked about some of the things that he's seeing around the organizations becoming more like a contact center. And you heard this morning from Forrester about how putting people at the center of that customer passionate thing is really about failing quickly and taking risks and learning from those and not having to let perfection be the enemy of good. These are all the things that we're trying to focus on getting with our clients and helping get out into their organizations to test and target, to move things to be more valuable quickly. How can we help them not create programs that no longer are being developed over a matter of years, but over a matter of months? Because once they get developed over a matter of years, they're no longer relevant. So We're trying to help our clients stay apace of change. We're trying to help them continue to remain agile, to continue to remain nimble in the organizations and in their competitive environments. And that requires us to really rethink how we help share knowledge in the organization to drive that skill, to help retain those employees, and to help our clients benefit from what they know and when they need to know it. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. Hopefully I didn't put you to sleep after lunch, and thank you. Well, I'm going to pass it on to Jamal.